Hey guys, this is Zero. This time with a tutorial on how to create a product from scratch for wRobot. Um, there's going to be a bit of overlap between this video and the plugin tutorial, especially the Visual Studio setup. So if you have any trouble setting up the project, then definitely you can refer back to the plugin tutorial where I go more into details about how to set up the project. So that means I'm gonna go a little faster for this first part. I have worked on 3 products so far. A profession product that has not been released, the AutoQuester that you might know, and a dungeon product that we are currently working on. So with that little bit of experience in that matter, I thought it would be a good idea to share with people how to make products. It's not maybe not as difficult as people might imagine it is, but as usual, the bigger issue is the lack of documentation for wRobot. So I hope this video might clear things up and maybe help you understand how wRobot really works. So maybe first I need to define what a product is. You can see the different products that you have installed in your products folder. A lot of them come by default, like the automat and the grinder, the gatherer, maybe pretty much all of them. And the product is what defines the behavior of wRobot. So the grinder works with profiles. You load a profile with a route, and it's gonna take this route and kill enemies along this route. The automaton just looks for random enemies around you, and the quester works with profiles too, and it just loads your questing profiles and executes them. So this is what we're talking about today, and then we're gonna make our very own product. All right, so let's do it. I'm gonna open Visual Studio, create a new project. Again, I'm gonna use the class library .NET framework. So class library, yeah, there it is. Press next. We're gonna name it product tutorial. I'm gonna leave this like that. Solution name product tutorial by default, that's good. And for the framework, we're gonna go with 4.7.2 again. Okay, so that's the product. So we're gonna go through pretty much the same process as the plugin. I'm just gonna rename this to main. Yes. So that's gonna be our entry point. And we're gonna add the wRobot references. This is pretty much the same process as the plugin. So you go to wRobot folder, bin, and we're gonna add robot manager, W manager, and memory robot. I'm gonna add them, press OK. I'm gonna make sure they're not copied. OK. I'm gonna right click on product tutorial, the name of the project, properties. I'm gonna set this to x86 and the output path to my products folder. Products. Okay. So I'm gonna go to File, Save All. And now I'm gonna remove the namespace as well as the unused references. So I'm going to press Control and KDRG. So it does everything for me. Good. And now we're going to implement the iProduct interface. iProduct from robotmanager.products. Okay, and we're going to have a quick look at this interface. So I'm going to control click it. And I don't know if you can remember the plugin interface, the iPlugin interface, but it was a little different. In the plugin interface, you had dispose, initialize, and settings, I believe. But this one is quite different, right? There's dispose, initialize, but there's also start, stop, and settings, and also is started. I'm not sure why it's here. I'm not sure if it's actually needed. We're still gonna set it correctly. So we have to implement all of that, and that's what we're gonna do right now. Okay. So here you can see it's red. We can remove this and user control. That's here from system.windows.controls. Okay, perfect. So first we're gonna just implement default stuff. Is started should be a property. So we're gonna just make it getter and a private setter. For dispose and for all these methods, we're just gonna log something for now. So logging.write, and we're gonna say product tutorial disposed for initialize. Same, initialized, started, and stopped. I'm doing this because I want to show you when those happens, because it can be a little confusing. When does it dispose? When does it initialize? When does it start and stop? And finally, I'm gonna just make settings return null for now. Obviously, all of this is temporary, but what I want to show you is those log messages. So we can build for the first time. So I'm gonna make sure I close wRobot, and that's one of the annoying things with wRobot, is that when you work on a product, every time you rebuild, you need to stop wRobot, rebuild, and then restart wRobot for the effects to take changes into account, which is kind of annoying, but you get used to it. So I'm going to close wRobot, rebuild. I'm going to relaunch wRobot. Okay. And your product should appear in the list. There it is, product tutorial. Okay, I'm going to select it. I'm going to go into the log and clear it, and I want to show you when these happen, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select whatever party, and then come back on product tutorial. And let's look at the log and what happened. As you can see, when we unselected the product, it stopped and disposed. So it tells me that mostly what you need to remember is that it disposes, right? When you unselect the product. And then we reselected it after the party product, and it ran initialize. So this is what you need to keep in mind. Initialize runs when you select the product in the list. Dispose happens when you unselect the product from the list. And then, as you can imagine, start and stop happens when you press start and stop here. Okay, now if you go to wRobot and you go to the product settings tab, which I'm gonna show you in a second, that's the tab. It says no setting for this product. That's because here we are returning null. So that's what we're going to do first. We're going to set up the settings, and you will see that it's quite different from the plugin. So first I'm going to create the settings file. Add new item, and we're going to call it product. No, yeah, product tutorial settings. Product tutorial settings. Okay. We're gonna make it public. I'm gonna go fast here. You can code along if you want, but I'm not gonna spend too much time. I don't think it's very useful. And this class will inherit from settings. Okay, from a robot manager helpful settings. Okay. And I'm going to do pretty much the same as in the plugin tutorial. So I'm going to go a little faster. So private static read only. I've explained all of this in the other tutorial, so feel free to refer to it. Product name, product name. There you go. Equals. And that's going to be the name. Product tutorial. Now let's make the path get setting path property. So private static string get settings path, and it's gonna return advisor file path and name. This is a method that is exposed in the settings class with product name, object manager .me, and object manager, you need the reference. And this is not a system runtime serialization, it's a wManager wow object manager .name plus dot plus usefuls dot real name. This is exactly the same as the other tutorial. And of course, public static product tutorial settings. Current settings. This is the static object that we will call to actually get our settings. And we're going to go get and set. Okay. And now we're going to need the save and the load method. Let me check that real quick on my other monitor. Okay, let's do it. Let's do the save first. So public bool save. Gonna be a try catch. Try catch exception X, sure. So try. So return, save, and some people were confused by save calling itself. But it's not the same method you're calling here, because here you're passing an argument, right? And the argument is get settings path, right? So that's save, so it's not the same signature. Here there's no argument, and here you pass a string as an argument. And this actually comes from settings here. Okay, you just return this. And if you have any issue at all, I'm just going to copy and paste from the my other product. All right. No surprise here. same as the plugin tutorial. And now the load method, public static bool load. Same here, try catch. Exception X, sure. Oh, by the way, here I copied and pasted was E, it's X. So in load, we're going to do this if file from system IO file.exist get setting path current settings equals load product tutorial set product tutorial settings and get setting path, and we return true. There you go, here. And then here, so if the file doesn't exist, current settings equal new product tutorial settings. And of course, if there's any exception, I'm going to copy and paste this. So here it's going to be load. And we return false. Okay, we've set up the settings. It's very boilerplatey. Nothing super interesting in there, but now it's set up and we don't have to worry about that anymore. Hopefully, if I didn't make any mistake. I think I didn't. We never know, but that should be good. So we can go to the next step now. So it's all nice and good. We're setting up everything, but we don't even know where we're going because I didn't say what kind of product we wanted to make. So I should have started with that maybe, but that's okay. I'm going to explain it right now. So I got the idea from someone on the forums who asked if it's possible to follow a person from a specific distance. He tried to use the party product, but wasn't reacting exactly as he wanted, because the party product would just follow someone, but just walk into that person at the exact same position. And he said, well, but can he stop at a certain distance? And the party product doesn't do that. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to make a product that follows and assists another player. So the kind of settings we will need is the name of the player we want to follow and the distance at which we want him to follow. So let's do that. Now we have two settings to implement, right? Okay, so we're gonna create a constructor. I have a problem with this word. Okay, and we're gonna create two properties. So one is gonna be a string. So it's gonna be public string, and we're gonna call it leader name. Leader name. So that's the person we want to follow, right? And we want the user to just input whatever he wants. And the other settings is gonna be the distance. So that's gonna be follow distance. I think that should work like that. Okay. And we're gonna input default value in the constructor for these properties. So leader name is gonna be string.empty, sure. And follow distance is gonna be maybe not 0. Maybe by default we want it to be 10. Yeah, let's make it 10 by default. Okay, so now we have the settings ready. Hopefully it works. And with two properties, the leader name, the person we want to follow, and the distance. Now this is where it's gonna be very different from the tutorial plugin, because in the tutorial plugin you could just call toForm, and it would create a separate form for your settings, and it will just automatically create it. But you don't have this luxury when creating a product. You need to actually create the actual form in WPF. So this is definitely not my expertise. I'm not a WPF pro, but I'm going to show you at least the basics and how to set it up correctly and link it to the actual settings class. Okay, so let's do this. I'm going to right click here and add a new file. And we're going to call it product settings control. And this is where things are a little different. And we're going to select here user control, WPF. Okay? And you can see that the extension of the file is XAML. So add. Okay. And now we have this new file here, the product settings control. And if you click on the little arrow here, you have a CS file too. So it's like two files in one, right? If you wish. So that's pretty good because it did some stuff by default, and we want to keep that both in the CS file and in the XAML file. So we're going to start with the CS file, okay? So as you can see, there's default boilerplate code. So first I'm going to clear everything, kdrg. Okay, start from fresh. And as you can see that there's a constructor and it's called an initialize component, and you want to keep that. You don't touch it. The only thing we really want to do is to add a data context to this form. Okay? So you call data context equals product tutorial settings dot current settings. Okay, now it's like you attach the settings, or you bind it if you wish, to this XAML form, to this WPF form. And you will see why this is useful in a little moment. And that's it for now. That's it for now for this file. Now we can go to the XAML file. And this is a little strange, right? If you're not used to it, there's some kind of GUI editor, and there's code here. So when we created this file, it added some code automatically, right? And we want to keep it that way pretty much for now. What we want to do is actually use this grid tag. It created it by default. You don't have to use a grid, but we're going to do it. I think it's one of the best way to design this kind of document, right? So we're going to add grid dot column definitions. And we can add columns in this tag. Okay? And the way you do it is simply do column definition, and it's a self-closing tag. Okay? And you can add several columns, right? So right now we have only one column, so it's like the entire width of the entire grid, right? So we can separate it in two and add two columns. And as you can see, it added a line here. That means we have one column here and one column here. That's what we want, because what we're going to do is going to have the text here and the actual controls here. And now we're going to add row, 2 rows. So maybe we're going to do 3 rows. One that's going to display the name of the product and then the settings. So we're going to add another tag here called .grid.row definitions. and this is where we're going to put our rows. So row definition, and same here, we can just self-close it. This time, maybe what we can do is add a height to it. Height equals, I don't know, 40, something like that. And we're gonna add 2 of them, right? Okay. No, we said 3, sorry. So that's 3 rows. Okay. All right, what we're gonna do for convenience is that we're gonna add a background here. Backgrounds equal white, because this is actually what we're gonna have in wRobot. We're gonna have a white background. So what we want to do now is to add the title of the product on the first row, and we want it to be center, right? So within the grid tag, we're gonna add a text block. Text block, and the text block is gonna contain the name of the product. It's product tutorial. Okay, you can see it appearing here. But right now it's just in the middle of nowhere, pretty much on the top left of the grid. So we want to be a little more precise with where we place it. So this text block, we want to go grid dot row equals 0, right? 0 is the first row. Then we want to do grid dot column equals 0, and grid dot column span. So we say 2 because we want it to span on the 2 columns. This way, when we center it, it's going to be actually at the center of the 2 columns instead of the center of the first column, for example. Column span, and let's align. Okay, horizontal alignment, center, and there you go. As you can see, it's centered here at the top. Perfect, that's what we want. We also want vertical alignment, center. Okay, it's looking better. And we can probably make it bigger. How do we do it? I can't remember. Size, font size, I don't know, 20, 25. Okay, 25 seems okay. Perfect, so that's the first row. And now we're gonna input the actual settings. So first, to make it very simple, we're just gonna do the text, right? So text block, and when I say text, I mean the label of the controls. So text block. So the first control is gonna be the name of the leader, right? So leader name. Okay, again, it's the middle of nowhere. So we're gonna say where we want it. So grid.row, and this time it's gonna be on row 1. Okay. And that's exactly where we want it. Perfect. So horizontal alignments, we're gonna do right. And vertical alignment, we're gonna go center. And maybe we can make it just a little bigger. Font size equal, I don't know, 15? Yeah, let's do that. And just so that it's not, stuck right at the line, we can do something like margin. I don't know, 10. Is it too much? No, that looks about right. Okay, margin 10. And I'm gonna copy and paste this. And for the second one, that's gonna be the follow distance. So this time it's gonna be on row 2. The rest can stay the same, but it's gonna be called follow distance. Okay, so we put the labels on the left and we're going to put the controls on the right. So we're going to start with the control of the leader name, and that's going to be a text box. So it's not text block, it's text box. Okay? This one is self-closing. We're going to place it on the grid. The row is 1. The column is 1. So that's the second column, right? I'm going to align it to the left. And I'm going to align it vertically. Center. So we can see it right now really, but it's here. It's very small. So we're going to set a minimum width. So min width equals, I don't know, 50? Probably more, 100. Let's go 150. Just for good measure. Okay, and we're going to add the margin. Margin of 10. So now the way to actually link it to your actual settings is to do text equals, and if you input some text, as you can see, it's basically the would say the default value or the displayed text inside of the text box. So what we want to do is this: binding path equals. So let's refer back to our actual settings, right? Leader name, that's the name. Remember, we added the data context here, the current settings. And in the current settings, we have leader name. So binding path equals leader name, and mode is two-way. What does that mean? Two-way means if the control changes, the data changes too. And if the data changes, the control changes too. So they are absolutely linked together, right? So your object and your actual GUI will be in sync. Okay, does that make sense? I hope. And we're going to do the same for the follow distance. And as you can imagine, this file can get huge really fast. So what I like to do is to add a comment here for the settings to separate them and to retrieve them easily when I open this godforsaken file, and then it's just a nightmare, right? So if you can organize it a little, it's better. So here you have leader name with its see, look at that. I already made a mistake here. It's here. So here we have the leader name and with the text block and its associated label. And by the way, I'm going to put actually the label above the text box. Okay, looks good. Okay, so now it's gonna suck a little because the last control we want to add is a numeric box, a box that only accepts numeric values. You don't want to let the users try and type text in it, only numeric. And that sounds like pretty simple, but actually WPF doesn't come with a default numeric value box like that. You have to install a package, and this package is Mahaps Metro. The good thing about this is that wRobot comes with Mahaps dependency, so you don't have to ship it in with your product. It's going to be there by default. So the way you do it is you go in Project and Manage NuGet Packages. Normally in Install you have nothing. You have no package installed. So you're going to go in Browse and you're going to look for Mahaps. M-A-H. Yeah, maps.metro. That's what you want. And you want to click on this, maps.metro, and you click on Install. Although I'm not entirely sure about the version. Maybe we need a lower version. Let me check. Because we want resources too. So we're gonna go and search for maps.metro, and we want this one too. And this is an old version, so maybe it's only compatible with older version. So we're gonna try and install it. Let's see what happens. Looks okay actually. Okay, so it installed a few packages for us, and I think that should be enough for you to start using the numeric boxes that come with Mahaps. So I'm gonna close this, go back here, I'm gonna copy and paste stuff that you can copy and paste to, that you should actually copy and paste to from the GitHub or from the Maps documentation. So this is gonna be a big pile of tags here, right under user control. So you go at the end here, press enter, and you paste it. This is something that you want to paste, right? And it says it doesn't find it. It starts. I'm starting to think this is not the correct version that I've installed. On the AutoQuest I have installed version 1.6.5, which is a way older version. So I'm going to try and do that. I'm going to go in Manage NuGet Packages. And I'm going to go in Install, select Maps Metro, and instead of having the latest version, I'm going to downgrade it to 1.6.5. Okay, update. Let's see what happens. Okay, that looks okay. I'm going to close it, and it still doesn't work. Great. What the heck is going on? Oh, actually, never mind. It did build. So okay, it just needed a little update, little time to update. And another thing I did is I pasted this line too. Again, you just paste it from the GitHub. So that was a lot of, copy pasting. I don't like doing that, but here, well, I mean, there's no choice. So I added this line here. You will see that we will use it in a moment. And we added these tags here. Okay? And we install, just to recap, we installed Maps Metro version 1.6.5. And now another thing we're going to do is just check that we don't copy all these references. So we're going to set copy local to false. And there's another one here, false. Normally we don't need any of those. Maybe I have to double check, but I think we don't need any of those to be copied. Okay, that looks good. I can close it. I can go back to the controls. And now, finally, after all these shenanigans, I'm going to add a comment here. So that's the follow distance, right? Follow distance. And I'm going to go controls. Remember, that's what we imported. Column, numeric up down. Finally, we have our control, the one we actually wanted. So it's on grid dot row, so that's 2. Okay, grid dot column is 1. As you can see, there's our control. Not sure why it's huge like that, but okay. It's kind of strange. Whatever. Oh god. Horizontal alignments is gonna be left. Okay, it's a little less huge. Vertical alignment equals center. Right. It's looking a little better now, right? And margin 10. And I think we're good in terms of just displaying the control, right? The preview is not super pretty, but you will see that it should look a little better in wRobot. So thanks to all of this, we can finally use an actual, numeric control. And we're gonna do the same as here, except instead of text, it's gonna be value. I think value equals binding path equals, so what was the name of the setting? Follow distance. Path equal follow distance, and mode equals two-way. I think that should be good. I'm gonna save this, and hopefully I didn't make any mistake. I might have. I'm gonna have to double check, but we're gonna see. So we're not completely done, obviously. Another thing we need to do is to go in main.ces and return something here. I'm going to move it down. And what we want to do is to keep it as a property. And we're going to set the getter. We're going to do a try catch. Exception E. From system. Okay. So I forgot one little thing. Let me double check. I'm checking at the same time the code on the AutoQuester. I know it works, so I refer to it. What we need to do is set a private product tutorial setting object. Product tutorial settings. And we're going to call it settings user control. No, that's not product tutorial settings. That's product settings control. Sorry, product settings control. There you go, because that's the settings user control, right? Okay. And here we're gonna go if settings user control is null, then settings user control equals new product settings control. So it's gonna call this constructor, which is gonna initialize the form, attach the data context and everything. And then whatever happens, we return settings user control. It's kind of a singleton, right? And here, if there's any issue, you just go, as usual, logging dot we're gonna go right arrow, main settings, OK. And here we return null in case there's an issue. OK. So here, settings, contrary to the plugin, settings was called when we clicked on the settings button, right? Here, settings is just gonna show in the tab, and that's it. So there's a few other things we need to do. So in initialize, we're gonna go product tutorial settings dot load. Okay, we want to load. Okay, I'm not in initialize. I'm in dispose. I'm getting tired, I feel. Okay, so we load the settings in initialize. What else? Let me see. No, that's pretty much it. We want to add a little adjustments here. This control is a little small, so we want to have a mean width of, let's say, 100. Is it working correctly? I think so. We will see how it displays. And also, what's cool with the numeric up-down object is we can do minimum. Yeah, minimum, and we want the minimum to be 0. This way, the user cannot input negative values. We obviously don't want a negative follow distance. Okay. All right, so now we can build and see if we can finally see this this form. I'm gonna launch wRobot. Okay, let's see. And there you go. The form is showing correctly. We have the title, we have the leader name. It's kind of weird. It's showing, you know, there's no borders. We will see what's up with that. Maybe that's because the size of the row is too small. I'm not entirely sure. But you can enter text here and you can change the value. And normally you cannot go under 0. Yeah, you can't. I'm clicking right now. Okay, so it's working. There's only one last thing to do, is that right now we're just changing these values, and it's, since the mode of the binding is two-way, we're changing the object, but we are not saving the settings. So what we need to do is, when this value changes, we need to save it in the file, and same for the follow distance. So let's do that. What we need to do is to go in this file, and we're going to make a method called private void save settings object sender and rooted event args. So I'm setting these arguments like that because we're gonna attach this method to an event, to WPF event on the text boxes. And simply what we want to do is go product tutorial settings dot current setting dot save. Okay, we've set up the method, and now we can call it when there's a change to these boxes. And the way you do it is, so we're going to start with the numeric value, and you go value changed. And how did we call it? I can't remember. Save settings, I think it was. Yeah, save setting. I'm gonna copy and paste it. Value change, you call save settings. It's just this simple. You don't have to do anything else. And I'm pretty sure it's the same for the text block here. Or maybe it's text change. Let me check. I don't think maybe it's data context change. Let me double check. So what we have to check is the events with that little thunder. Text input, actually. I think that's the one that's gonna be better. Text input. So when a text is typed, it should save the settings. I think that should be good. I'm gonna close wRobot and we're gonna double check all of that, right? We're gonna check that not only it's displaying the right settings, but also that we are actually saving the settings. So I'm gonna go into the settings folder of my wRobot and search for the file. It doesn't exist right now. The reason is that we never saved anything yet. So I'm gonna launch wRobot. Go into the settings. And I just saw right now appearing under my eyes ProductTutorial Bria, that's the name of my character, as a core. So it did create the file when we loaded the product. That's perfect, that's what we wanted. So I'm gonna open it and we're gonna check what's in there. We have leader name and there's nothing. And we have follow distance 10. That's perfect because that's what we wanted as a default value. I don't know if leader name should be an actual empty string. I don't know if that's good. It might return null. We'll see after that. We can double check that. That's not a problem. But for now, we're gonna leave it like this. We're gonna just change the values in there. I'm gonna AAA, doesn't matter, and we're gonna change it to 15, for example. And let's see if it actually changed the value in there. I'm gonna reload it. And there you go. AAA and 15. So that's perfect. Finally, it took quite a while. It's a bit of a mess. It's not where I'm the best, as you can tell. That's definitely not my field of expertise, all these settings and WPF stuff. But it's working, and now you know how to make settings and to display them even as a product and save them. Okay, just a quick update. The reason why the borders were not showing is because of, as I thought, the height of the rows was too low. So instead of setting an actual value here, we can do auto. It's gonna be better. And now we can see that we can see the borders, and we're gonna double check in wRobot. So rebuild, relaunch wRobot. And there you go, we can see the borders now. It looks much better like that. Okay, so after all of this, we can finally start to actually code the product itself. What we need to do is to set up the much dreaded FSM, the finite state machine, because this is how wRobot products work. I'm going to explain what the finite state machine does and how it works in more details, but first I need to set up the classes. It's important really to understand how it works, and you might be tempted maybe to go on Google and search for finite state machine, and you're gonna find a lot of stuff about it, but it's gonna confuse you mostly because the way wRobot uses the final state machine is not the traditional normal way you use a final state machine. What you just need to remember about the FSM is that basically the concept is that the bot can be in only one state at a time. And this is the most important thing to remember. The bot can only be in one state at a time. And the states in the wRobot are iterated through using priorities. Okay, so right now it sounds probably a little abstract, but you will see as we code that it's going to make more sense, hopefully. So let's dive in. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new class. And I'm going to call it tutorial bot. Let's do that. Okay. We're going to create a private member called private read only engine from robot manager.find state machine. And we're going to create the FSM equals new engine. So we have a new engine here. It's the actual FSM that's going to run in the background constantly when wRobot is running. And we're going to create a new method called public bool, and let's call it FSM setup. And it's gonna return a Boolean value. It's gonna return true if the FSM was successful, and false if there was an issue, or any issue whatsoever. What we want to do now is to first make sure that we clear the FSM of any states. It shouldn't be useful at all, because normally every time you stop and start, it's gonna create a new one. But just to be sure, we're doing this. By the way, I usually name my private variables like that. So now what we want to do is to define which states are going to be used by the FSM. So you have to provide the FSM a list of states, each with a specific priority for it to iterate through it. Okay? So since it's a list, it kind of makes sense to have it as a list or an array, and that's what we're going to do. So we're going to have an array of states called states equals new new state. Okay? And we want to give it some values. Okay. So what we can do right now is just provide it with the default wRobot states. We're going to implement our own custom states, obviously, but it also needs all the possible states that your product is going to need. For example, there's one called new relogger. Relogger is a default wRobot state. And as you can see, this is the first one I'm putting in. The reason is because it's going to be the top priority. Relogger is the top priority. That means that at any time if you get logged out of the game, the relogger should kick in, right? What else can we add? There's pause, for example. Same, it's very high. It's under relogger, but just just under it because when you pause, that's top priority, right? So this is how you need to design your FSM, and this is what you have to constantly keep in mind. What state is more important? And the order of the state is extremely important. So the next one we're going to put as a default state is going to be resurrect. Resurrect. Okay, so when you die, obviously very high priority is to just handle the resurrection. What else? New my macros. So if you use the macros in it, then sure, you can do that. Then we have new regeneration. So it's when your character needs to drink or eat. What else do we have? I'm looking at the AutoQuest states right now, and I see, for example, farming, but we don't care about that, right? Maybe you don't want your, since this is just going to be a product that's going to follow someone, follow a player and assist him. We definitely don't need farming, right? You don't want him to just start running away to gather some herbs or something. Trainers, we can add trainers maybe. Do we want the follower to go to the trainers? Maybe you can make it an option. I don't know. We're not gonna put that now. And you have 2 town. And this one, it's tempting to put it, but again, it goes against following a leader, right? So we're just gonna leave it out for now. And finally, we're gonna have new idle. Idle is the bottommost state. It's the one that basically you've iterated through all the states and nothing needs to run, so you just run this idle. Okay, so now we have a list of states, right? And we want to add these states to the FSM. The way you do it is, well, first we need to reverse this array. So states equals states.reverse to array. Okay, so it's going to be reverse. Idle is going to be on top, and you will see why we do that. Now we're going to do a simple loop, a for loop. So I equals 0. Look at that, it's auto-completing perfectly. Perfect. So we are iterating, we're going to iterate through this array, right? And what we're going to do is do states I dot priority, and this is the important part, equals I. And obviously FSM dot add state states I. So I hope you understand what's going on here. We're adding the states one by one, starting by the bottom. Okay, so we start with idle, and we assign a priority to idle equals to I. So idle is going to be 0. Its priority is going to be 0. It's going to be the lowest priority. Then regeneration is going to have a priority on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And this is how the FSM is going to iterate through its states. It starts with the topmost priority and goes down the list. And here's something that's also very important to understand about the FSM. So when you start the product, the FSM kicks in, starts running, and what it does, so as I said, it goes through each state one by one. So it goes through relogger. It checks if relogger needs to run. If it doesn't need to run, it goes to the next step. Pause. Does it need to run? Doesn't need to run, it goes to the next step. And let's say you're dead. So resurrect needs to run is going to return true. So it needs to run. It's going to execute its code because each state has a need to run property as well as a run method. So it's going to execute run for resurrect. So what could be the code in resurrect? Could be like search for my, as a ghost, search for my corpse, go to the corpse and press yes to revive, right? So it's going to do all that in run. And then when it's done running, it's going to go back to the top and start iterating again. That's very important to understand because I saw that confusion before. Some people think that, oh, it's executing the state and then it keeps going down the list. No. What it does, it executes the state and goes back to the top. So for example, in pause, let's say need to run return true because you have detected that the bot is in pause. You can just have a thread.sleep 100, for example. So it's going to go pause, it's going to go back to the pause, pause, pause. It's going to basically be stuck in there. And that's something that you want. It sounds kind of strange, but while you are running a state, you want the FSM to be constantly running to check for other states, maybe higher priorities to maybe execute. And we're going to see it in action very soon. So that's quite a lot to take in. I hope I'm making myself clear because that's not something that's super easy to explain. But yeah, I hope you understand the concept of the FSM. So now what we want to do is FSM dot states dot sort, which I don't know if it's actually useful because we are adding them already in the right order, but just to be sure, again, we just do that. And finally, we do FSM dot start engine, and it requires two properties, two arguments. The frame per second, so it's the speed at which the FSM is running. And we're going to do 10 frames per second. I guess it's fine. As well as the thread name. So the thread name can be really anything. So what I do is underscore, and in this case it's going to be tutorial bot. And then another line that's added, and to be entirely honest, I'm not 100% sure what it does, is stop bot if dot launch new thread. And I'm gonna be honest here, I'm not entirely sure what it does. I guess I copy pasted from somewhere, and just to be sure I added it. But so anyway, just add it. I know it works like that, so you can trust me on this one. What I forgot to do is to do a try catch. So let's do this. Interesting. Okay. Jesus. What a mess. So if something goes wrong, we're just gonna logging dot right error, and we're gonna go FSM setup plus X. Otherwise, we're just gonna copy and paste all of this in try. And we're gonna return true here. Return true. And in catch, so if there's an issue, we return false, because remember, we want to return true or false whether the FSM setup was successful or not. Okay, so we have a very, very basic FSM right now. It doesn't do much, it just lives. right? It can resurrect and it can regen. That's pretty much all it does right now, which is fine. I think I didn't forget anything. All right, we want to dispose the bot too. Do we need initialize and dispose here? Let me check. Let me double check. I'm trying to see if I don't forget anything because there's quite a lot. Yeah, actually, I think we need dispose here. Okay. So we're gonna create the dispose. I think it needs to be public. Public void dispose. Okay. And what you want to do in there is simply fsm.stop engine. See, it knows somehow how to do it. Yeah, I think that's all we need to do for now, but we're gonna add more code in there. And here, if anything goes wrong, you want to dispose to. All right, I think that looks okay. If I forgot something, I'm gonna add it, and of course I'm gonna record it, obviously. But that sounds okay for now. So I'm gonna go in main. And now we need to start the bot actually. So we want to start the bot when we press start. So here. Okay, so let's do that. Let's see. So first we want to do is started equals true. Remember, is started is a member of it's required by iProduct. It's a member of this class here, main. So what we want to do is here create a private read-only tutorial bot. And we're gonna bot equals new tutorial bot. Okay, so we create a new instance of tutorial bot. This is where we have our FSM, right? And in the start method, what we want to do is to go if bot dot FSM setup. Remember, that's what we just created. So if we set up the FSM correctly, there's no issue. Now, what you want to do is to load all the plugins, because remember, you're creating a product and the product is the center of everything, right? So you need to load not only the plugins but also the file class. Although the file class I think might be I think it's automatic. You don't need to actually manually call it. We will see. But the plugins for sure you need to call plugins manager dot load all plugins. Super simple. You just do that. Okay, we're gonna put this line here. Else, so if there was an issue loading the bot, so is started is false, and we're gonna say ProductTutorial failed to start. I think that should be enough. So when we press start, it turns to true. We set up the FSM, and if anything goes wrong, we turn back it started to false. Let me check. Now in stop, we need to call bot.dispose. And also, since we loaded all the plugins here, we want to do plugin manager.dispose all plugins. So as you can see, the plugins are controlled by the product here. And of course, is started equals false. Okay, I think this is enough to actually start the product, and we're going to test it right now. Let's go. So we're going to do two interesting things. We're going to, well, first I need to reconnect with my character. Okay. We're going to start the bot, see if the FSM is running, and we're going to also start a plugin. And this is going to be connected because this plugin is called What's Going On. It's a super simple plugin that shows a little window telling you which state is running. Okay, so I'm activating it. And if all goes well, it should start. It does start. ProductTutorial started, and as you can see, it's idling. So that's good. That means it's running because none of the states we have needs to run. So it's just basically stuck in idle. And that's exactly what we want. Now I'm gonna just kill myself in the game, don't worry, and see if the resurrection state kicks in. Let's go. Resurrect. And oh, I thought it was not working. Let's see if he can retrieve its corpse. Okay. So as you can see, the product is working. And it's acting exactly like we wanted. Okay? So as a quick recap, because that was a lot, I'm aware of that. So we start the bot, we start the FSM, we add all the state we want to the FSM, and you can add all the state, any state you want in any order, and you can even make your own pose state if you want. The default one is perfect. There's nothing to change about it, but you know, or if you want some specific regeneration functionalities, then you can add your own regeneration state, for example. You can control everything that wRobot does. It gives you a lot of control, this FSM. And you can put them in any order you want, but be very careful with the order. It's extremely important to think twice about why am I putting this state or this state in this specific order. All right, so we have a good start, and now we can actually think about adding our custom states. All right, quick update. I knew I forgot something, and this is about the file class, and you actually have to manually load it. So we're going to do this right now. So first, you need to update the spellbook from the spell manager. We're going to do this here, I guess. Spellmanager.update spellbook. And also, we want to load whatever file class you have in. So custom class.load custom class. It's all in start. So once we have set up the FSM, we update the spellbook, we load the custom class, and we load the plugins. Okay, and of course, since we have loaded the file class, we need to dispose it on stop. And the way you call it, as you can imagine, is like this: custom class dot dispose custom class. And I think that should be good. Yeah, we're gonna test it really quickly and see if it does load the file class. I'm gonna rebuild, relaunch the bot. Okay, and I'm gonna load a file class like the AIO. And we're gonna check the log and see what happens when you start the product. Okay, ProductTutorial started, and the AIO, the file class, is indeed running. Okay, we're still dead, so it's retrieving its corpse. Yeah, there you go. It did it. And now if we stop, ProductTutorial stopped. There's no message in the IO when it disposes. I want to double check. I'm gonna try with the TBC one. Okay. So launching version, blah blah blah. Very good. Now we stop. Okay, and the file class did dispose. So we indeed started all the plugins and the file class, and we dispose. We stopped the file class and the plugins. There you go. Okay, so the next step is to add our custom states. But before I do that, I'm gonna create a manager for the object manager. This is gonna be very overkill for what we want to do. But it's a good way to demonstrate how you can use Manager to nicely organize your code and make things a little clearer. This manager is gonna be passed to multiple states, so you will understand why we do this, hopefully, and you will see that it can be very useful. Okay, let's do this. So the goal of this manager will be to detect if the leader is in the object manager range. That's all it's gonna do. So that's why I said it's very overkill. But I still think that's a good way to do it. Okay, so I'm gonna create a new folder. So add new folder, managers. Okay. And I'm gonna start by creating a new interface. It's gonna be called iCycleable. It's gonna be a very simple interface. So wait a second. Okay, so public interface iCycleable, and we want it to implement two methods: initialize and dispose. And I want my managers to implement this interface because it's very important for managers to have a initialize and a dispose method, mostly because a lot of time they are going to attach listener to events. So you want to make sure you remember to not only attach but also remove these listeners. Okay, so we've created this interface. And now I'm going to create an interface for the object manager itself. Because this is an object that's going to be passed to states, and we want to only expose certain methods, not everything. Okay, I'm going to call it I. So it's going to be called OM manager for object manager manager, which is kind of strange, but that's why it is. Again, it's going to be a public interface. Public interface. And we can already think about what kind of method we want to expose. One would be public. No, you don't say that in this. So bool is leader in object manager range. It's going to be a property, and it's going to be a getter. Okay, and now let's create the actual manager. Oh, by the way, IOM manager has to implement iCycleable. There you go. So now we're going to create the actual class. So OM manager. Okay. And this implements IOM manager. And obviously it's complaining because it's missing three implementations. We're going to implement the interface. And perfect, we have initialized this pose and is leader in object manager range. So in initialize, what we want to do is to attach a listener to the object manager pulse event. So the way you do this is simply object manager events dot on object manager pulsed. So remember how we attach a listener to an event. You do plus equal, and we're gonna call it on object manager pulse. Okay. And as usual, we attach an event and we remove it on this pose. So simply minus equal. Okay. So now we're gonna create the actual method. Private void on object manager pulse. Okay, it doesn't require this listener doesn't require a specific signature. Okay, what else do we need here? So on initialize, we're going to attach a listener to this event. This event, by the way, fires like 10 times per second. So this is very overkill. But once it's done, maybe when you keep working on this product, you would need more things from it. Maybe you need to detect more units around you. Right now, it's just going to be the leader, right, that we're going to be looking for. But in the future, maybe we need more. So you can reuse this manager for the future. It's very future-proof, if you will. So something else that we are going to need is the name of the leader as set by the settings. So we're going to do private string leader name, and we're going to leave it like that because we are going to set it in initialize. So when we initialize, we set the leader name to what we have set in the settings. So product tutorial settings dot current settings dot leader name. Okay, so this will be set correctly. And another thing we want to expose is the actual unit, right? Let me reorder that nicely. So that's another thing we want from this interface. And this is going to be, I believe, wow player. Yes. So you have wow units. So that can be any unit, including players. And wow player is only units controlled by player. Wow player, and we're going to call it leader unit. And that's going to be a getter too. Okay, so we go back to the class and we implement the interface again. Okay. So let me explain how it's going to work. So we initialize, we attach the event. It's going to pulse 10 times per second, roughly. And what we want to do is, at each pulse, we want to look into the World of Warcraft object manager for the leader unit. So remember what I said about the object manager having a 100 yards range. So it's a little more subtle than that, actually, because it depends on the server you're playing on. Some servers have a higher or lower object manager range. So it's not always 100 yards. But anyway, we want to look into the object manager, because if the leader is very far away from the player, then there's no way for us to get its unit. There's just no way. So basically, what we want to do at each pulse is leader unit equals object manager dot get object wow player. It's a list of all the wow players that are in object manager range. Dot find player dot name. Auto completion again. Right. It's set to read only. Right? This one. So what we want to do is get and private set. Okay? So this member here, this variable, is going to be updated 10 times per second here. And if the leader is out of the object manager range, it's going to return null. So now we can actually define this one. So is leader in object manager range would be leader unit is different than null. And there you go. Now we're exposing two very useful properties. Now we can pass this manager to the states and easily check if the leader is in object manager range and get the actual unit here. So now that the manager is ready, we're gonna actually initialize it, and we're gonna do it in tutorial bot. We're gonna do it here during the FSM setup, right? So we want to make it a class variable first, because we're gonna use it in FSM setup and in dispose. So private, so OM manager, OM manager. Let's do it this way. Okay. And we're gonna do this here. So OM manager equals new OM manager. So we initialize it. No, it's not. I just can't instantiate an interface, obviously. And this is an important part, OM manager dot initialize. So we create the instance and we initialize it. And now it stays here, right? And now we can access it in dispose. So we want to do OM manager dot dispose. Now we have this manager that is available here, and now we can easily pass it to the states we are adding to the FSM. And it's finally time to create a state. The first state we're going to create is just following, walking to the leader. Okay. So, whoops. What I want to add is a new folder called states. Okay. And we're going to add a new item called follow leader. Yeah, just follow leader. Okay. So this is a state, and it has to inherit from state, from robotmanager.finalStateMachine. And it's complaining because there are two abstract members that you need to override. There's a property called need to run. I talked about it before in the video, and run. Can you do it for me? Okay. So before we do that, what we can do is give it an actual name. So we're going to go public override string display name. Damn, the heck is that? Just a getter, and we're going to call it follow leader. Okay. We're gonna create a constructor for it too. So CTOR. Nope. There you go. And remember, we want our state to have the manager passed to it, right? So as an argument for the constructor, we're gonna add IOM manager. OM manager. And we're gonna make it a class variable. So private, read only, IOM manager, OM manager. Okay. And now we can assign it here. Okay, so now this state has the object manager, and we can use it in both need to run and run if needed, and we're going to need it for sure. So need to run is going to be a getter. So get. And I hope you remember what I said about need to run, but when the FSM iterates through the states, for each state it's going to check need to run. Does it return true or does it return false? So here you have to be the one who defines the condition, the multiple conditions for need to run if needed. So first, what I usually do is I just get rid of any condition for a that would return false. For example, if object manager dot me dot is valid. So this is kind of a strange one, like you're not valid. I think it happens when you have a loading screen or something. You just return false. What other condition could we add that says basically we don't want to run this state? So another one would be if our OM manager, so or OM manager dot is leader in OM object manager range, right? So when the FSM checks for follow leader, like do I need to run this state? Well, if the leader is not in object manager range, like there's no way for us to get to him because we don't know its location because we cannot get its unit. So we know for sure that if the leader is not, in object manager range, then we definitely don't want to run follow leader. Okay, does that make sense? Okay, so if we reach this line here, that means the leader is definitely in object manager range. So we can return true here. And if need to run returns true, then it's going to execute run. Okay, so if it returns true, we know that the leader is in range. And now we can simply move to the leader position. Okay, so we're gonna do something very simple for now. And we're gonna do go to task dot to position, and we're gonna call OM manager dot leader unit dot position. So one of the mistakes I've seen is that some people will design their need to run, like they will add like object manager dot me dot dead is dead. So I don't want to run this state if I'm dead, which makes sense. Or conditions dot is connected, something like that. No, connected, game and connected. So something like that, and they will pile up more and more and more conditions in every state. But when you do this, you work against the FSM, because we're going to add the state right now, and you will understand what I mean. So we want to add follow leader to the actual FSM. So we're going to go back to tutorial bot, and we're going to add it here. So where do we want this follow leader thing? So is it higher than resurrect, for example? No, of course not. Is it higher than regeneration? No. Which one do you want to do first? Do you want to regenerate first, or do you want to just follow blindly even if you're very low HP? No, you want to regenerate as soon as possible. So it's going to be under here. So new follow leader. And remember, we have to pass the OM manager. And good thing we have it here, right? We'll just have to do this. Okay? So now we have added the follow leader state to the FSM. And we have added it here at this priority. It's very low priority, actually. It's under relogger and resurrect, which means we don't need these lines. Because if we reach this need to run, then we know for sure that we are live, and we know for sure that we are in-game and connected. Because otherwise, if it wasn't the case, we would be stuck either here or here. And remember, when resurrect or relogger executes, the FSM goes back to the top every time. So if you are dead, for example, you never reach follow leader. You never reach this state here, this need to run. So now that everything is set up, we have the state and we have a manager that's going to be running in parallel. We can actually rebuild and give it a go and see what happens. Let's see what happens with this. Okay, so I have two World of Warcraft clients opened, and let's say Bria is going to be the leader, and let's say Rendra is going to be the follower. So Rendra is going to be the one running the bot. So I'm going to open wRobot. So run it for Rendra. Okay, it's the first time I launch it with this character. So I'm going to select ProductTutorial. Okay. I'm going to go in the option, and I'm going to set the leader name, right? And the leader name is Bria. So B-R-I-A. And the follow distance doesn't matter because we haven't done anything with it. And if we press play, I'm going to allow this plugin to run what's going on, and we will see what state runs. And let's see what happens. We don't need a fight class, it's okay. Press play. Okay. And as you can see, we're stuck in follow leader state. And if I move around with the other character, okay, it's following me. but it's constantly following me. It doesn't stay at a distance. It's moving kind of erratically. It's kind of strange. And that's normal because that's the way we coded it. So let's improve this. So I'm going to go back to the OM manager, and we're going to complement it with the actual follow distance and see how we can improve it. My idea is that we're going to keep this to check if the leader is in object manager range. So that's not the range we set in the settings, right? It's the entire object manager range, because we just want to check if the leader unit here returns null or the actual unit. So we want something else. We want bool is leader in settings range. I like to be very explicit with how I name my variables. This way things are clear when I come back to it a few months later and I don't know what the heck is going on. Is leader in settings range. Okay. And now we're going to implement it in the OM manager. So how would that work? Public bool is leader in settings range. So we want to check first if the leader is in object manager range, and remember, if the leader is in object manager range, that means this is not null. Okay, and leader unit dot position dot distance to object manager dot me dot position is under or equal to product tutorial settings dot current settings dot follow distance. Okay, I hope this property makes sense to you. So basically we check if the leader is both in the object manager and if it's under the follow distance. Okay, so now we can use this in the state. So follow leader. And instead of using this, I'm leaving this this property in the OM manager because we're gonna use it maybe later. So is leader in settings range instead. So this will return false. This will not run if I've made a mistake here. If, yes, so that's good. Like this. So if the leader is in settings range, we don't need to run follow leader because we don't need to work to it. Otherwise, we return true and we run go to task to position. Let's give it a go. I'm going to run it. And this time we're going to set the follow distance a little higher. So, oh, there was an issue. It didn't save the leader name. Okay, we have our first bug. Let me check in the settings. Yeah, it didn't update it. So Bria. Yeah, it doesn't update the leader name. I'm not sure what's going on. I'm gonna pause the video, look at it, and come back to you with an answer. Okay, so I found where the mistake is. It's pretty bad. Remember how we did the text input save settings? We did it in the text block of follow distance, which is completely wrong. It's okay, we're gonna just move it to the text box here. Okay, so the text box of leader name. This is where we want to do something when the text has changed. And actually, there's a better one than text input here. It's text changed. Okay, and we need to do another thing, which took me quite a while, and I will have to thank Marsbar for this one, because I looked at his code for. He's really an expert for WPF stuff. He's really good at that. And the other thing you need to do is to do update source trigger equals property change. So this is the correction we need to bring to this leader name text box for it to work. And I'm going to test it right now. So rebel, open wRobot again. Go in the settings. I'm going to open the file so we can see at the same time if it updates. So type anything in there. And there you go, it updates. So when we first set up the settings, it looked like it worked because actually we changed this value at last. And it would save everything in the form basically. But just changing this one didn't work. It didn't trigger an update. It didn't trigger a save in the file. So that was not good. But now everything seems to be working again. So that was a little correction to add. Okay, so now we can actually test the follow range. And there's something we need to correct here. We not only need to check if the leader is in setting range to return false, but we also need to return false if ommanager is leader in object manager range. So we need to check both. Otherwise, it might run even when the leader is null, which would create a null pointer exception here. So now like this, it should work. Okay, I'm gonna relaunch wRobot. The leader name is correct, and the follow distance I set it to 25, so that should be good. And I'm gonna launch the bot and see what happens. Okay, we have no errors, that's good. Now I'm gonna work. And there you go, as soon as I'm above 25 yards distance, the follow leader state triggers. And this works pretty much exactly like the party plugin right now. But it doesn't necessarily stops at 25. What I really want is that if I go above 25, starts working until I'm under 25 and then stop. Here it just works to your position exactly. So that's not exactly what we want. And this is the perfect example to demonstrate what I talked about earlier, and the fact that you want to spend as little time in a state as possible, because the more time you spend running a state, the more you keep the FSM from possibly triggering higher priority states. And we're going to actually do something, and I'm gonna show it to you and show you what happens really. Logging dot write start running, and here we're gonna log write we arrived. Okay, I'm going to rebuild. Launch the bot. And have a look at the log now. Okay, I'm going to clear the log and I'm going to move away. Okay, start running. It's running. And we arrived. So what does this tell you? This tells you that this goToTask toPosition is a blocking thread. Basically, the thread of the FSM arrives here, checks need to run, runs, and then it stays here during the entire walk. Now imagine, like here we're just walking 20 yards, so it's not a big deal, but imagine like you have to go far away to another town. Now you're just stuck in one state, and during this entire time, the FSM is not checking for other possible state to trigger, which is not what you want. So you want to move to your target, but you don't want to be stuck in run. And there's a way to do it. And I'm going to show it to you. So if movement manager dot in movement, so if we are not currently moving, we're going to find the path to the leader and start walking. And this is a big difference. So list vector3, a path is always a list of vector3. Path to leader equals, so you call the pathfinder dot find path. So from, when it's from you, from object manager.me, you don't have to put the two arguments. There's an overload that basically assumes it starts from you. So you can just add one argument and it's the target. And the target is manager dot leader unit dot position. Okay, so if we are not in movement, I'm going to have a list to the reference, collections generic. If we are not in movement, we find the path to the leader, and then we do movement manager dot go path to leader. Okay? This achieves almost the same thing as this, but there's a big difference. The difference is that this, contrary to the previous code, doesn't lock the thread in there. What it's gonna do when it's gonna go to run, it's gonna check, am I in movement? No? Okay, just create a path to the leader and start basically a parallel thread to move to the target, and then it's gonna exit immediately. Let's see if let's see it in action, and let's see what happens in the log. So logging dot write. Actually, I'm going to do this here. Running follow leader. And you're going to see something interesting. Remember before, when it started working, we had the message that we started working, and then when we arrived, we had the message that we arrived at the end of run, right? So let's see what happens here. This is a crucial difference. Okay, just run. Now I'm gonna just walk away. And it's acting the same, but there's a big difference. is that the state is constantly running. The FSM is still running, and it's still, while it's working, it's still checking for other states. That is very important. So the difference between the previous code and the current code is that in the previous code, the FSM went relogger, no, pause, no, 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 follow leader, yes, and it was stuck in there. And during the work, it was not checking for anything else because it was stuck in follow leader. But now, the code we're using right now, it goes to follow leader, starts a path on a separate thread, and keeps checking for everything. So if you die during the path, it will work correctly. If you need regeneration while you're working, it's going to work correctly. So it looks like a tiny difference, but it's actually quite a big one, and it's very crucial, and it's very important to understand that you need to spend as little time as possible in run, and that's what we're doing right now. Okay, so now I'm going to simplify this part a little. And by simplifying, I mean make it more readable, because negative conditions can be a little confusing when they are stacked up like that. So instead of doing this, I'm going to go if the leader is in range, in the object manager range, and it's not in settings range, we're going to return true. And otherwise, we just return false. And we can remove this now. So now it's a little easier to read. It makes more sense, right? Need to run if the leader is in object manager range, and if we are not in setting range. Okay, now that we've done that, what we can do, so remember what we want is that we want the follower to just follow us but stay at a distance. We don't want him to walk all the way towards us, but that's what it's doing right now, right? So the way we're going to do this is we're going to add a state that actually stops working when we are within settings range. Okay, so I'm just going to copy and paste the current follow leader state. Copy and paste it. I'm going to rename it to stop in leader range. I'm going to call it this. It didn't rename the class. It's okay. Stop in leader range. Stop in stop in leader range. Okay. It requires the OM manager too. And now need to run is where things are going to be different, obviously. So we want to stop in leader range if the leader is in object manager range, obviously, and we are in settings range. This is where we want to return true. But also if movement manager in movement, right? We only want to stop if we are actually moving. Okay, and the only code that's going to be in there is going to be movement manager dot stop move. Okay, so this state triggers if we are in, the leader is in object manager range, and if we are within the settings range, and we are currently moving. Okay. Now the only thing we need to do is to add it to the FSM. So do we want to add it before or after follow leader? Now take some time to think about it, because that's very important, because if you place it wrong, then it's not going to work at all. So the answer is here we want it above follow leader. So new stop in leader range, and we pass the OM manager. Because remember, while we are working towards the leader in this state, it keeps checking all the states above, right? But not under, because we stop here, because we run this state. So if you place stop in leader range under follow leader, it's never gonna trigger. It's never gonna work. So what happens? Again, sorry if I'm rambling, but that's very important to understand, and that's really at the core of the products. So we follow the leader, we run this code. But while we are working, the FSM keeps iterating through all the states above follow leader. And then, if we are within leader range, this state kicks in, stops the movement, and then it should idle. I mean, it stops the movement, it goes back to the top, and it's gonna go all the way down to idle because nothing else needs to trigger. I think this should work. Let's give it a try. If all goes well, it should follow me exactly at the distance I set. And it's gonna stay away from me. It's not gonna work like to my position precisely, is what I mean. So I'm gonna set a lower distance too. I'm gonna set it to 10. Okay? So I'm gonna press play. Okay, it's running. And look at that. It's following me at 10 yards distance. And it stops at 10 yards distance. Right? It doesn't work all the way to me because the stop state triggers. Okay, I hope you understand what I've done here. It's very, very important. And I think it was a very good example to show you exactly what's going on and how the FSM works and the intricacies of it. Because if you have states that if your code spends too much time, if your thread spends too much time in a state, like you run into problems and you don't understand why are my higher states not triggering? I don't understand. And this is usually the way. So here, this is a perfect example and a good implementation on how you can make someone follow you. And while it's working, it's still checking for all the other states, so it can do all kinds of other things that you want. So I said before that, while it's working, if it dies, it will not trigger resurrect. Well, that's not entirely true. I went a little over dramatic. The reality is that if you die, the go-to task that we first implemented, remember, it exits if you die, actually. So that's not entirely true, but still, it's a good way to explain to you how that works and how you should design your FSM. Okay, so now the last thing we want to do is to add a state to let the follower assist the leader when it's in a fight. And the way we detect that the leader is in a fight is, does the leader have a target? Is this target attackable? And is this target targeting the leader? Okay, and I think the OM manager is the perfect place to do this. Okay, so we're gonna go public bool leader attacking target. And what it's gonna do, it's gonna return. So first we check if is leader in object manager range. So is leader in manager range, and leader unit dot as target and leader unit dot target object, because if you do target, it's only the target's GUIDs, and you want the actual target object. So if leader unit target object dot target, this time it's the GUID, is equals to leader unit dot GUID. Does that make sense? So we want to check if the leader is in object manager range, if it has a target, and if his target is targeting him too. And maybe what we can do is and leader unit dot target object dot is attackable. So we make sure it's a hostile unit, so we don't start and maybe attacking maybe a player from your faction that would be selecting your leader. Something like that. It's very unlikely to happen, but let's try and make it foolproof. I think that's good. So we're going to add it to the IO manager interface. Bool get. Okay. And now we're gonna add the fight basically state, protect the leader or just assist him, should I say. So again, I'm gonna copy and paste just to go a little faster. Rename and assist leader. Okay, rename it, assist leader. We absolutely need the OM manager. That's why I'm copying and pasting this, because it's fairly similar. Assist leader. Okay, and now need to run. So we can simply check if OM manager dot is leader attacking target. It's not the correct name. Is leader attacking target. Okay. So is leader attacking target. We return true. And simply what we can do is fight dot start fight, and we need to pass the GUID of the unit we want to start the fight with, and that's going to be OM manager dot target object dot leader unit dot target object dot GUID. Okay. So let's recap. Assist leader. Okay. Need to run. If leader attacking object, attacking target, we return true. And then we start the fight. That should work like that. Now we just had to add it to the FSM. Where is it? I have too many things open. Let's close everything. Tutorial bot. And let's think, where do we want it to go? I think we want it just under regeneration. Yeah, regeneration is more important. Or is it? Yeah, regeneration is more important than attacking the target, right? Than assisting the leader. Okay. So new assist leader, and again we pass the OM manager. And just like that, that should work. In theory. Let's see. Disconnected again. I'm gonna relaunch the bot. I'm gonna set a file class here. Perfect. And I'm gonna set the follow distance to be even closer. Let's say 5. And launch the product. And if all goes well, when I attack with this character here, when I attack a target, the follower should assist me. Okay. Yep. As you can see, it's fighting here. Oh, I think it stops the fight because there's an option in there. We are not in the same party. It has an option to ignore the fight if a unit is already tagged. So I'm just gonna invite her to the party. So, and I think that should fix it. Okay. Let's see. Yeah, perfect. So as soon as I attack any target, it's following me. As soon as I attack any target, you can always look at this little window here, and it tells you which state is running. And as you can see, by the way, you can see follow leader, and then when it stops, you can see very quickly stop in leader range appearing. It's very faint, very fast, but it's here. So it tells you what's going on. So let's try again. And yeah, it's working. So as you can see, it's pretty easy once you have the entire base of the code ready to add new states and to complement your product. There's obviously a lot of things that could be improved. Obviously, this is very basic what we've done here. The things I would improve is, for example, when following, instead of just doing those little steps, maybe add some kind of elastic effect or accordion effect if you prefer, as in having a little margin so we don't just walk 1 centimeter by 1 centimeter if needed. What else could we improve? Like we could make sure that the leader name, where is it? The leader name that we get from the settings, we can make sure like we trim it, for example, and we go tool hour, and we do the same here. So play on name dot tool hour. This is the kind of little things to improve the product overall. But I'm not going to go into this. Like the important part of this video is not that the product works perfectly. It's to show you the principle of the FSM, how to build it, and how to make it work nicely. So I'm gonna stop here because there's not much more to say. I mean, there's a lot more to say, but I don't want to go into too much detail about some other stuff. I think the basics are pretty much covered, and I hope you enjoy. I hope you liked it. I tried my best not to stumble upon every word because, again, English is not my native language. And thank you for watching.